help women, save lives, and peacefully end abortion where you live.
I can tell you exactly what would happen. The infant would be delivered. The infant would be kept comfortable. The infant would be resuscitated if that's what the mother and the family desired.
You were serious about that?
Be inspired to change hearts and minds by joining over 1 million volunteers taking part in the global movement happening in your neighborhood.
She says, pray that I can get through this abortion. And I said, oh, no. So she went ahead and went into the abortion clinic. And she just came out. She told us, I'm not going to get the abortion. We just had a baby saved. We had a baby saved in Memphis today. Praise the Lord.
This is the 40 Days for Life podcast with your host, Sean Carney.
Hello, and thank you for joining us today on the 40 Days for Life podcast. I am Sean Carney, the president of 40 Days for Life, and your host for this podcast, which is dedicated to helping you end abortion where you live. And we are here. What to Say When 2 is about to come out. Be sure to order directly from 40 Days for Life. Support our mission. The official release date is September the 10th. If you order now, you will get a signed copy. You will also get free shipping. You can also get it on Amazon. You support our mission more if you order it directly from us, but that is obviously not a requirement. Be sure to go and get it on Amazon if you don't get it from us. Very excited about that. And today we are going to cover a topic that we hit hard in What to Say When 2, and that is the very unfortunate fact that you, as a pro-life human being, don't care about children that are already born. You may think that you do care. You don't. You may have children that you care for that are already born, and you think you care for them. You don't. You only care about unborn children, which is horrible of you. And we will cover why that is in this podcast. And somebody who cares about born and unborn children is Mr. Steve Carlin. You're the exception to the rule.
That's, I think, the first non-sarcastic intro you've given me in about 3 years and 4 months.
There's a reason for that.
Okay.
It's not because I have elevated you. It's because you're the co-author of the book. And if I just keep insulting your intelligence all the time, then it makes you look like you don't know what you're writing about.
We need to grant some dignity to the proceedings.
There needs to be, you have to have an ounce of credibility so that we can sell the book. So,
well, I'm doing great, and I'm glad to be here.
yeah, thank you. Thank you. I was just reading Chaucer. So, and we also have Heather Gardner, who always gets a respectable intro.
Sure, yes.
Wow, according to all of us. Okay.
I have a question.
Yes.
I don't know where you were going, but did you guys know that people really like estrogen? I know.
What?
Totally throwing you off.
Estrogen?
People like estrogen?
The female hormone?
Yeah, the
I'm
hormone.
uncomfortable with that.
Okay, here's why I say that. I was told recently at a couple of our big events, namely our gala earlier this year, by
In April, the dinner.
several separate people that they're so glad to see some estrogen on the podcast.
Oh, you're promoting yourself right now. So people keep telling me this. I'm the one that added you to the podcast. I know you're good for the podcast. I like having you on the podcast. But people keep coming up and being like, it's good that Heather's on there, as if I don't want you on.
But also,
I added you.
was it you that you probably made the joke that you already had estrogen with Steve on the podcast?
Yes.
So
that was my joke. But I do get this
Why am I catching strays over here?
I don't know. You're it today. But I people will be like, Sean, it's really good Heather's on the podcast. Heather's great. And I'm like, no, I know. I thought it was a good idea that we add her. She's going to be on all of them.
It's all me. It was
So
my
we
idea.
have a good time here. We're laughing.
It's like they're advocating that I put you on the podcast, and I'm like, she's already on, and I added her.
Secretly, people were telling you that behind closed doors, and you were like, no, that's a bad idea.
No.
Is that what they're
No
like?
one said don't have Heather on the podcast. Really, no one even said you need women on the podcast.
Right.
This is another fabricated pro-life thing where it's like, y'all need more women. We actually don't get that a lot.
Yeah.
You know what we did get recently?
I think we do. Now we do. But
Yeah.
A couple months ago, we had the podcast where we talked about Riz and all of those other terms that young people use, and we got a request to have some, not sure if this is an actual quote, but I think it was something, we need some, quote, actual young people on the podcast. So I guess we're old and crusty and
is that
washed
like?
and
I think they
cooked.
meant
But
to
then-
say younger.
But that's number one. We have guests. We have Haywood. We have Matt. They're a little older. We have not had Hannah on.
Mm-hmm.
That would be interesting because she's like the youngest person that works here.
She can do
What's
her
Hannah?
Gen Z podcast.
Hannah's like 22 or something. I mean, she's like just got out of college. So I have something came up recently, and I have a question for Steve. I'm just cutting you out.
That's fine.
Okay. Actually,
now.
You probably will be able to answer this question.
And then the feedback will be that everyone is so happy to hear the estrogen answering the question, not just Steve.
Recently, we had a ceremony at my house on forming my kids and preparing them to go out into the hostile culture and evangelize the world. And the activity was that I showed the older kids Major League.
Oh, greatest movie.
Just a classic, okay? Unbelievable. What a great movie. Hysterical. Can't make it now.
No.
It's anti-voodoo because Serrano gets rid of Jobu at the end and throws him down and basically gives his life to God and then hits a home run. That's to tie the game, I think. So Major League, Rene Russo's first movie. So, you know, I kid you a lot about movies, but you're a big sports guy and you're a big sports movie guy. And I want to know like your top 5 sports movies.
They're almost going to be all baseball, which will not be a surprise to you. Major League is number one.
Is it? That's your
love
favorite?
Major League. Yeah, that's on my Mount Rushmore of cinema, period, which says a lot about my psychology, I suppose. I would put Field of Dreams up there. I don't care if people make fun of it being cheesy and Kevin Costner is a bad actor. I love Field of Dreams. Remember when Sue tried to get us tickets to Field of Dreams? Sue Thayer, God rest her soul.
God rest her soul. No, it wasn't tickets. She almost got us tickets to the game when the Yankees and the White Sox played.
Yes.
And you had to be, there was a lottery for citizens of Iowa.
Yeah, only Iowa residents were eligible.
And because she's like, oh, you guys like baseball. Like, she's just the sweetest person. She tried to get us the tickets, which would have just been awesome.
Yes.
You know, if it happens again, now that Sue is in heaven, somehow, like, I think we'll end up in tickets. She'll like work a miracle. That could be her first miracle. Try to get her canonized.
Yeah, I hope that happens.
Okay, so Field of Dreams, Major League.
I'll take a momentary detour from baseball here and say Miracle, about the Miracle on Ice.
Yes.
Excellent film. I'll go back to baseball and say The Sandlot. That puts me at 4, right?
Yep.
I'm trying to think if there's any football movies. I feel like there should be some other sports, but baseball
Friday Night
lends
Lights?
itself.
No?
Never seen it.
I've never seen it either.
Really?
Is it good?
It was a feel-good enough movie.
It's Texas.
It's Texas, yep.
It's not trashy, is it?
I don't remember it being trashy.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
I got to leave that
The
fifth.
language is bad in Major League, but that's pretty much it.
Yes. I got to leave the 5th spot open. Maybe I'll get inspired later, but there's nothing that I feel that I can think of immediately off the top of my head that reaches my love for those that I've mentioned.
What's the football movie with Pretty Face and Denzel Washington? Like
Remember the
young,
Titans?
Remember the Titans?
That's a good one. That's a good one.
I liked it, didn't love it. We watched it right after the symposium.
Here's the problem with Remember the Titans. It's such a great movie, and 2020 ruined it because it's about race in a good way. And then race is now everything, and there's no good in the world, and you can never be unified. And you know,
Back when we were against segregation.
back when we were against segregation, now we want to have it back because all these lunatics. So yeah, it's crazy. Well, you didn't ask, but I got to give you mine.
Yeah, I just assumed.
Rudy,
Okay.
Major League, Rocky IV. I just love that movie. Sandlot, and The Natural.
Excellent. That inspired me to think of my number 5, which was not on your list. But have you seen The Fighter with Mark Wahlberg and Christian Bale?
Yes.
A little bit of a rougher movie, but
Rough.
excellent.
And what's her face? Is Amy Adams in it?
Yes.
Isn't she like the drugged out girlfriend or something, or
Yes.
wife? Okay. I've only seen that once, and I can't believe that's on your list.
Oh, I love that movie.
I am shocked because
It's actually a quality movie, or because it's too rough, or what?
because it's rough, and I'm saying that like I can tolerate rough, dark stories, but even in that movie, I'm like, mercy, can we watch Barney after this? So it was just kind of it's intense.
That was a film where I decided I'll watch anything with Mark Wahlberg in it.
Yeah, he's a great
And
actor.
Christian Bale is awesome too.
Christian Bale is a great actor. Ford vs. Ferrari is very good, actually. It's just a fun movie. Great, like, teenage boy movie. He's just like race cars and dudes, and it's cool.
Are we just assuming that estrogen doesn't enjoy
No,
sports movies? What
she's
do you
a-
like?
It's specifically sports movies?
Yeah.
Oh, gosh. Okay. I'm just going to go with all the ones in my childhood that I remember then. Not any
Angels
more
in the
recent.
outfield.
No, that's
Rookie
not
of
on
the
there.
year.
Rookie of the year. Rookie of the year.
Giants?
Little Giants was good. It was so cute.
Heather is such a nerd. Like this list is good. Those are the highlights. Mighty Ducks.
Sandlot. Mighty Ducks.
I told you this is like a rated G.
It is. It's all the rated G and the Big Green, which I love soccer when I was little. It's a soccer movie.
Who's
This
in
is
it?
real sports.
Steve Gutenberg.
When's it from?
It's from the 90s.
The Big
Yeah, yeah.
Green.
The Big Green. Yeah, it's a good movie. It was then, at least. I
I
haven't
don't
seen
think
it
that
since
that's
then.
a real movie.
Fact check me. I dare you.
We may have to
The
do
name
that
is
later.
too bad to be made up.
I know. There's like Big Green something. Are you forgetting the last word?
It's the Big Green.
Like the Big Green Machine? I'd believe that. But all those were like kid movies.
Yeah, because
right.
that's what came to my
That's
mind.
good.
So
We have universal agreement on The Sandlot, which
Yeah.
is fantastic. And ironically, the best parts about it are not the baseball parts.
No,
It's just
but
boys
it's an
growing up.
American movie.
Yeah.
It's awesome. It's really awesome.
That's why I'm a dork. And as this podcast will have aired, I will have had the chance to take my boys to some ballparks, and one of them is Dodger Stadium, which I love because it's like you're walking into the Sandlot. Everything is that pastel blue,
Yeah.
and you've got the hills of LA and everything.
Have you been to Dodger Stadium before?
Yes.
Yeah, I went as a kid. We went and visited my uncle who was an actor out there, and it was super cool. I love Dodger Stadium with the palm trees and everything. And
You
the
feel like you're
mountains.
walking into like 1959.
Yeah, it's really, really. They have done for everything California has screwed up. The fact that they haven't messed with Dodger Stadium really gives me a lot of hope.
It's like what Wrigley Field and Fenway Park are to the like 1910s. It's like that for the early 60s, I would say.
Oh, very
You just
good.
feel like you've stepped back in time.
Yeah, really good analysis. Before we move on, did you end up seeing The Natural?
Not yet.
That is a Steve Carlin movie.
Okay, I've got it.
That is like deep father-son baseball, slow, but you don't mind. Robert Redford, like in his prime. Good movie.
No voodoo.
No voodoo. And he's The Natural.
All right.
So I'm really interested in your feedback on that. That's a big producer, John. That's your generation. You like The Natural? Oh, I love it. Okay. Yeah. Robert Redford, anything. What is that? Like 86, 85?
I want to say yes.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah?
Yeah, I think so.
Somewhere in there. Yeah. It's just awesome. Okay. I don't know. We got to get away from Robert Redford, who's not pro-life at all, but is very good in The Natural. Okay, this has made a resurgence. So this wasn't a thing because there's never been a time when the abortion advocates were reasonable. Because if they're reasonable, they have to look at science, and then if they do that, they have to become pro-life. But there was a time where they were trying to be reasonable, okay? And during the time they were trying to be reasonable, they got away from you don't care about born children because they're like, I don't know, these Christians, they're like adopting children with disabilities from Africa. And like, these are probably good people. They're just crazy and don't believe in reproductive rights. They wouldn't like accuse us of hating born children.
It didn't work out well simultaneously with them saying that Amy Coney Barrett was a white colonizer for adopting children
Yes.
from Haiti.
I forgot about
Yes,
that.
that's immediately what it made me think
Those
of.
poor kids had to leave Haiti.
So she's from a big Catholic family. Does she have like the cousin at Thanksgiving that like calls her the white colonizer? Like it's a joke. Like you have to have that cool brother-in-law or cousin that's like, hey, white colonizer. You know, like you got to use the media stuff and laugh about it. Okay. So George Carlin made this famous. And I know we're going to get to his clip later, but he has a great clip, and we'll air it later. But this has made a resurgence, and when Trump got elected, and for some reason abortion just started kind of heating up, and we had Cuomo light up the Empire State Building. I was on a plane. I don't know why this always happens to me, but it does. And the guy asked what I did. I told him. And he was calm. He said, yeah, but the problem with the pro-lifers is they only care about born children. Or they don't care about born children. And I said, I think you're right. I said, you got me. No, I just kept, like, just like that. Just total silence. I said, I really don't. I mean, I've seen like the commercials, like 38 cents a day can feed these kids, and they show them starving. And I'm like, just let the little punks die. Like, who gives a crap? I just can't stand it. Like, it's awful. I'm not giving any money to St. Jude's. Like, I could care less about born children, especially sick ones. It's all, I don't even like my own kids. And he is just falling over in laughter. Okay, the guy.
Uh-huh.
And then he was like, all right, you got me. Like, which I just said to him. Like, they don't believe it. Nobody believes it. It's a once again, what in the world is wrong with abortion? Why can't we just have an abortion? Why do the people against abortion have to hate everybody or be racist or be chauvinist or be sexist or whatever? Why can't you just have an abortion and be good? So they just make up this stuff that they don't believe. And we fall for it. And in What to Say When, too, we hit this hard. Stop saying, no. We volunteer at the soup kitchen. And one time we gave a homeless man $5 and we adopted a kid and we do all this. And of course, pro-life people are doing those things. But we don't get into the do-gooder resume battle with people who want to murder children.
Yeah.
That's just me.
It's just another deflection, like most of the pro-life or the pro-abortion arguments against pro-lifers. That's what it is. Because you're right. I think some people do actually believe that because they're so ingrained in all the awful things that our media says. But I think you're right. Most people, if they were actually challenged on that and really were honest, they would say, okay, that's just over the top.
And I want to be clear because we're going to get into this in detail, but I want to just break this down for the listener and the viewer. This is very simple. And this has been true from the history of civilization, okay? You got to follow me on this. It's very easy. The people that want to kill people don't get to tell the people who don't want to kill people that they love people more. Mm-hmm. It's as simple as that. The people historically that want to kill people don't get to tell the people who don't want to kill people that they care about people more. We don't sit in an ethics class and when Heimlich Himmler walks in his Nazi uniform and says, I'm your professor for moral theology, we don't say, well, it'll be interesting to see his view. We drop the class. We drop the class. And this is why they're assuming that if you, and this is so lazy, as you said, it's a deflection. They're assuming that if you care about something passionately, then you don't care about anything else.
The zero-sum theory of care. There's only so much love to go around. By loving the unborn child, I am distinctly not loving somebody else.
We have some examples. You want to go through those? These are gold.
Well, Just like comparisons.
Yeah, I like dog shelters only care about dogs until they've been rescued.
Which is great.
That's my favorite.
That's the best. That's like one of the best ones I've heard.
This is a good one because this is endless. We put a lot of these in What to Say When too.
Yeah.
What to Say When two's got like we cover it all. Pediatricians only care about children until they turn 18.
Yes.
The hell with them.
Yes. It's good. I'll read the next one. Cancer charities only care about people until their cancer goes into remission.
Terrible.
I don't see the oncologists continuing to provide heart care for them.
That's true.
Yeah. He didn't help them with their COVID a year later.
Yeah.
It's even better than, because what I've told people before when they're like, oh, I don't know what to say. People are online accusing me of this. How do you respond to that? I say, are you yelling at the American Cancer or the American Lung Association because they don't care about heart disease? Like, this is even better. This is a more aligned analogy. It's
I really
ridiculous.
particularly like the rescue dog one.
The rescue dog one's my favorite.
Demographics
That's
of that
gold.
Yes.
That is gold. I think we have an environmental one in the book. I did put an environmental one in the book. So there's some fun things for like environmentalists. We may have some kind of drug thing. I can't remember. But we basically you could pick, out of our 20 examples, you could pick 3 that would apply to the person or that you're comfortable sharing. But this is huge now. Like, this is a big thing. This, you don't care about born children. And it's really bad for their movement, which of course I'm happy about. But they have totally gotten away from this, attempt at being dignified of this is between a woman and her doctor, and the Supreme Court is attacking women's health. We are restoring it, and sort of this like, we're going to rise above the rhetoric. And now it's like the playground, you're ugly.
It is. And the fact that we can all acknowledge, because I think we're honest people, that things are not perfect for our communities in terms of healthcare for all groups. Like, we can acknowledge that, and we can work to address those things, especially when it comes to healthcare for children, the access that they have, if families are under the poverty level or anything like that.
Access to education, that's a huge problem.
Yeah.
Like the argument that, if you're from the inner city, your schools stink, no one wants to teach there, and you're not allowed to leave. Mm-hmm. I mean, we're not talking about trapping people in a cycle. Mm-hmm. And that's why I think we're going to end up with school vouchers in Texas. It looks like that's actually going to happen.
You don't have it there? We have it even in Wisconsin. I'm surprised.
I know. I am too. But and they're pushing to give all the tax money back to the parents so they can send their kids to private schools or charter schools.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. But that's a real problem. And yet that's typically like a Democrat issue.
Well, right.
Because the teacher unions are crazy.
Right. And both things can be true simultaneously, that we could not have great situations and also children that are unborn are as valuable as children that are born. And so if that's the case, then we, no matter what party we identify with, should be addressing those issues, no matter who's pushing them or who's on the side of education.
But if we use that analogy, let's stick with that analogy that like we disagree. I think if you're in the inner city, you should have some tax funding to get your kid out, or there should be. I know a lot of the private schools in Houston, like the Catholic schools or the Christian school. We support one of the inner city Catholic schools because it's like dirt poor. There's a Christian school that has scholarships for certain, low income. All that stuff's great. But the Democrats who's like, no, we just can't do it. You can't just abandon a school, right? You've got to reform it. You've got to make it better. I believe they're good intentions. I don't think that they don't care about the inner city kids. I think that they do.
Only until they graduate.
Only until they graduate. And that's the thing. Like, I think a lot of, if you just look at Republican policy and Democrat policy, besides going to war, because there's a lot of money in war, besides that, I assume the best. I think that they have good intentions. I think the Ukraine thing is insane, but that's a different topic. I think that's just like a money grab. But like the universal health care and all this stuff, I think both sides are well intentioned. This is like you care about children that are in utero, who, by the way, we can't see or touch or kiss or any of that, right? More than a kindergartner.
More than the children that are already here is
Right.
usually how they like to phrase it.
That
or
are
the
already
ones
here.
that exist. We're talking about actual people, not, unborn potential fetuses or however they like.
But in the Carlin clip that they'll hear, he says preborn or unborn.
Not the bad Carlin, not
the
not-
George
not the-
Carlin,
yeah, George Carlin.
not the Steve Carlin.
yeah. Sorry,
There was a joke there, but okay.
Does
George,
he use preborn?
He says preborn. He says
yes.
that's what's funny. That's why I like this argument, because they're like, you only care about unborn children or unborn children. And you're like, you don't at all unborn children. I mean, they usually won't correct themselves. This goes back to our unborn and preborn discussion, but
Yeah.
that George Carlin says preborn.
Yeah, and it's like a
it goes
juxtaposition with preschool. It's pretty
Right.
clever. Like it's
Hysterical, and he's funny. I don't care that he's like pro-abortion and he's making fun of it. I like that the argument, we break the whole thing down and what to say when to, in a very serious manner. But the George Carlin clip is hysterical. I just want to, we do have a sense of humor around here. But the point is dumb. The clip is funny, as people will hear. So the other angle to this is that's actually true. Like when I'm messing with the guy on the plane, but I really believe that. Kids drive me nuts. There's a lot of people actually that believe that. They don't like kids and they want to reduce the population. Let's say we really don't care about born children. Does that mean we can kill unborn children?
Yeah, does that make dismemberment or poisoning any better?
If a group of people doesn't care about a certain group of people, does that justify another group of people killing a group of people?
It's like when OJ said he didn't kill his wife, but if he would have, it would have been because he loved her too much. I think that's the only time I've actually heard somebody make this case that we claim we care more about people because we want to kill them.
Wow.
An OJ reference. I did not see that coming.
I'm a Renaissance man.
If the glove don't fit, you must acquit. We need Johnny Cochran on our DOJ lawsuit. We kind of have him. We got a pretty famous trial lawyer helping with it. Okay.
I remember when one time when I did get this on the sidewalk and there was a lady, she was clearly wanting to do a drive-by, like, I'm going to insult you and then drive off really fast. But I responded just quickly enough for her to not drive off. But she basically made this argument where she said, you don't care. What are you doing for all the kids that are already here? What about this? What about that? Well, she said it to the wrong people because a few feet away from me, there was a couple praying. And I said, oh, do you mean this couple over here who just fostered their 81st child that they have fostered in the last 40 years? Or do you mean, and I was pointing out, and
Nice.
I just kind of said that because it was just one of those things. Now it's like, how does that, now you don't have to fall into that trap. But
Right.
I felt the need to respond with that because she was so adamant about just basically dropping that and running off. And she was like, oh, yeah, right. And what did she do? Oh, she lost that argument. So she went to the next thing.
That's why you can't fall for the trap.
Yeah.
And this is where okay is a gift. Mm-hmm. You don't care about born children. Okay.
Thank you for your insights.
Yes.
It's never enough though. Like 81 or
Never enough.
You mentioned
Yeah.
Sue Thayer before.
Exactly.
Late great Sue Thayer literally fostered hundreds of children, and she didn't go and advertise that. But if you tell an abortion supporter that, there's not one who was like, "Oh, in that case, I would like to hear your opinions on abortion."
Right. They're not actually looking for that justification.
How many is enough? 1,000, 2,000?
And that's the question. When they say, well, you would adopt, why don't you just go adopt all these children? Then it's like, okay, how many should I adopt in order for you to be satisfied?
I don't think they want to go there either. Not just because our rap sheet, because that's not satisfactory, but one of the harshest public critics of abortion, privately and publicly, was Mother Teresa. I mean, she took care of the poorest of the poor children. So I don't know what examples they want to use.
Well, she's an anomaly. That's not the rest of us.
Well, they've also done a hatchet job on her reputation. Chris
They have.
Hitchens and
Yeah.
others like, oh, she was
Awful.
Anti-woman and all that stuff. But yeah, I don't understand the if something were to have happened, right? I think something that hurts our cause, and I may be wrong on this. I have mixed feelings because the whole thing just makes me sad. I hate talking about it, but I'll bring it up. But these scenarios where a woman delivers a baby and leaves it in a dumpster, it just happened yesterday in Houston.
Yep.
Okay. And the pro-abortion folks, the crazies that are now leading their movement, they love all that.
Oh, of course.
Okay. And so
It supposedly proves their point.
and it's in Houston. She doesn't have access to abortion.
Because babies weren't being left in dumpsters before this.
Correct. That's never happened ever. But just the whole, if something like that happens, they use that as an example,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But that doesn't happen a lot. Like not just that specific example of the dumpster, but like a pregnancy resource director with 5 kids kills her family or something. There's some national news story. That has never happened. That doesn't happen. I don't think it will happen. But like that's where they would say, see, she's out there telling these women not to have their baby or to have their babies, and then she killed her own. You know, she killed her toddler. That's where you would think this would come up. But it doesn't. This just comes up out of thin air like, you know, a playground insult. You don't care about people. Why? Because I care about the unborn? Why is our consistency a weakness?
Yeah, we had a case, and I'll hit this quickly, but I'll say sensitive listeners might want to flash forward 45 seconds or a minute. In Wisconsin, there was a teenage pregnancy. The child was born. The father took the baby out into the woods and shot the baby in the head.
Gosh.
Oh my
The news coverage of this article wrapped by saying, if you're facing an unwanted pregnancy, you should go to Planned Parenthood. Here's the phone number for Planned Parenthood.
You got to be kidding
So
me.
they can get a hole in their head legally before
Yeah, it was
they're born.
just the time.
Tell me he
Bad
got
time.
prosecuted.
God.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I think that a lot of the reason they go in this direction, because there's no logical basis for it, right? I think there's a recognition that we say abortion is wrong, and we stand by that. And people, I suppose, would rightly interpret that to mean we're saying that they are wrong, that there's something wrong. If abortion is murder, you're supporting abortion. Are we saying you're pro-murder? I think they're feeling a sense of guilt about that. They're identifying, they perhaps suspect we're projecting that they are bad people, and the response is, no, you're bad people.
Here is the serious side of this, which I encourage people based on their temperament to do. This is where producer John is going to like this next part. I can tell you that.
I'm ready.
This is, you know how we have a lot of kids, and so people are like, you know what causes that? And they say all the dumb stuff, and you're like, you know, you make like a sex joke or something, and they're like, that's inappropriate. You know, okay, so you can talk about sex, I can't. And so, anyways,
Have a TV.
this is kind of like, yeah, don't you have a TV in your bedroom? Yeah, so, we don't need one. You know, it's just, it's endless. Mary Lisa's going to kill me. So
Some of the responses like, "Have you seen my wife?" Or, you know, or like some
yeah,
pro-life
yeah,
guys.
I've
That's
done
all that. Or have you seen my husband?
I've done all that. Yeah, Mary Lisa bought me. Or she, what is the cup she bought? She laughs at it. I don't know. I think it's actually degrading to me. My husband is hotter than this coffee. It's a thermos.
Oh yeah.
So she carries that around. Like people laugh at it.
Yeah.
Because like it's not true, so it's funny. So anyways, no, the coffee's much hotter. So this is where why can't we go there? Okay? So we can go there in 2 ways, right? We can go there and say, all right, yeah, I don't care about children. And then they kind of start laughing. Mm-hmm. Then there's another direction, which is are you friggin' kidding me? An abortion dismembers a baby, sucks their brain out, puts it through a vacuum and a tube and a canister, and then loads it in a medical truck and hauls it off. And you're for that. And you want to tell me that you care about preschoolers? You want to tell me you care about public education? You want to tell me you care about like hospitals and poor children? You're a psychopath. You've supported the largest Holocaust in the history of the world, and you're running around acting like you're Mother Teresa? You're full of crap. You don't care anybody. I wouldn't trust you to build my road.
I remember about 15 years ago, Father Pavone had a flyer or a brochure or something out, and it was like, if a candidate came to your door who was pro-Islamic terrorism, this is not that long after September 11th, you wouldn't ask what his position on healthcare is. You wouldn't ask what his position on transportation is. You wouldn't even ask, I think was the name of the brochure. And I feel the same way about abortion.
That's great. That's a great thing. I didn't know he put that out. It's brilliant. And it is so true. You don't trust these people, the healthcare system? They, with calm and ease and smiles and suits and cologne, describe their support for the slaughter of unborn children, something we couldn't have explained to our ancestors. We couldn't have, George Washington couldn't fathom this, that we do this on a massive scale and that we export it. And these people think that they're like patting themselves on the back for it.
And going back to the children who are abandoned in dumpsters or
Right.
the woods or anything like that, if you're going to be a consistent pro-abortion advocate, so what that baby died in the dumpster? Like, that's not a big deal.
Right.
Because what is it that you're concerned about? That the baby suffered? So you're not saying abortion will eliminate the suffering. You're saying abortion will make them suffer sooner. It's going to end their life sooner. Or if a child dies, days, weeks, or months after they're born because of a terrible disease or something, well, they should have had an abortion at 16 weeks. They should have been able to, or the parent should have chosen that. And you're saying, because why? What is it that you're trying to change or eliminate here? And it's like, you're not really trying to eliminate suffering or pain. You're just trying to move the timeline and make it happen to where it's okay in your mind.
And just because you support mercy killing doesn't make you a good person.
Yeah.
And that we do need to go on offense on that, and because then you just never get off abortion. You just go with what the abortion actually is, what it does, and the graphic nature of it, and say that I'm against that and you're okay with it. We won't even say you support it, but you're like, it should be up to the woman. Okay, so you'll tolerate it. Okay, you're just like the Germans that live, around the corner from Dachau, and you're like, a lot of things go on. We've seen some bodies. There's an odor in the air, and then you see your buddy, and he's a Nazi, and they're like, hey, what's going on with the Jews? They all got rounded up out of my neighborhood. And the Nazi looks at you and says, yeah, you'll thank us later. We're going to clean things up around here. And you just kind of go along with it. And that is for them to turn around and say, yeah, you're going to thank us later that we support abortion. You're going to have all these, what the nut said, all these unwanted kids can go live with Kavanaugh when they're born.
And where does it end then? You go the Habitat for Humanity people, be like, quit doing this. You don't want these people in your neighborhood or people with houses.
This is what's great. It's only with abortion. Mm-hmm. It's only with abortion. It's the same with like the rape victims, the children that are poor. We root for those kids.
So you're not going to go home and stop on your way at the soup kitchen and be like, hey, how many unborn babies have you fed?
Mm. Good point.
No. I'm thinking of some nut that would actually do that.
Probably a handful.
Yeah, but like, I just think that we can go there and we can accuse them of not caring about anybody. Because you're telling me, do you believe in abortion at 39 weeks? Yes. Do you believe in giving health care to the baby once they survive? It's going to be yes. Most of the supporters actually support that. It's just the nuts that lead the movement. But why? Like, so you're telling me that you're cool with choice, and then something happens when the baby comes down and is delivered, and in that magical
Birth canal.
time,
Birth
in the
canal.
magical birth canal, you become Mother Teresa, to where now you will care for that child forever, and we're supposed to believe that. An hour earlier, you can dismember the baby and kill it, according to you. Now, you care more about the baby than anybody in the history of Earth. And we're supposed to believe that crap?
I think one of the things that we encounter often where they start bringing up other issues, we've talked before that this is not an issue of my injustice can beat up your injustice.
Right. Yeah.
But I think, and that's why I don't criticize. If there's someone who doesn't have time to come out to 40 Days for Life because they're in the soup kitchen every day or they're at the Adoration Chapel, God bless you. That's wonderful. Like, our problem is the people who are watching football all the time, like I would be inclined to do. But there is something that is unique about abortion. Two things, I think. One, if you want to talk injustices or human rights atrocities, however you want to categorize it, in magnitude, it affects more people. It is the leading cause of death. Abortion kills more people than all other of these causes of death, natural or unnatural, combined. And then secondly, it's not just a question of magnitude, but I think it's a question of category. Killing children is in a different category than a child somewhere dying of starvation. If you have, like, what about the immigrants? If there are people that are injecting the immigrants with a solution to kill them, I would fight that tooth and nail as hard as I would fight abortion. If there are people that are out there that are dismembering the, Syrian children that we were talking about a moment ago, like, there's just most of the social issues that we talk about do not involve. It's a matter of what is the best way to educate children. Nobody is saying let's kill half of the students that are in the school.
And I feel like we have an extreme cause, right? Because abortion is pretty, it's the murder of unborn children. But like, I know a lot of priests or religious sisters, and they do immigration ministry, or they teach in schools, and they have, they're pro-life obviously, but they don't have a lot of time to dedicate to the pro-life movement because they're doing other things. And I'm totally fine with that.
What the problem is when they discourage pro-life work.
Well, yeah, but
that's
I'm
the
talking
problem.
about, those are the bad ones. I'm talking about the good ones.
Okay, go ahead. Talk about the good ones.
Yeah, I'm talking about the good ones. I mean, the bad ones are just like, who cares? Yeah. We had a leader, and he led 6 or 7 years, closed their abortion facility. They're abortion free. Their city is abortion free. And I was like, well, what are you doing now? He said he has a lot of time on his hands. He goes, I'm going to take over St. Vincent de Paul.
Awesome.
That's what he does, which raises, food and clothing for homeless people. And which is great. Just let's on to the next thing, right? So I do. We have got to fight the temptation to give the resume. I won't do it. You can't do it. That, and now you're like, now you're trying to be a better person than them, which, number one, can just be kind of prideful. You're also falling into their arguments, and you owe them nothing. Mm-hmm. You owe them nothing, as we have stated time and time again. Okay, we got to get to George Carlin. All right, here we go. Well, first off, our point is going to be that no one is more alone than the unborn child, and we're going to prove that, and we prove it in What to Say When, too. All right, here we go. Roll the George Carlin clip. Remember, it's okay to laugh at this. It's okay to laugh at it. He's wrong, but he's still funny. Go for it.
Boy, these conservatives are really something, aren't they? They're all in favor of the unborn. They will do anything for the unborn. But once you're born, you're on your own. Pro-life conservatives are obsessed with the fetus from conception to 9 months. After that, they don't want to know about you. They don't want to hear from you. No, nothing. No neonatal care, no daycare, no Head Start, no school lunch, no food stamps, no welfare, no nothing. If you're pre-born, you're fine. If you're preschool, you're
Okay, so he does the preschool.
No relation, by the way. Different spelling.
Different spelling.
Completely disavow the man.
Very important.
Other than he's good with
detail.
the turn of the phrase.
Well, and God rest his soul. He's been dead a long time.
Longer than I think I usually expect. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, he died like 3 or 4 years ago. I think it was much longer than that.
But he's a guy that like looked like he was 52 when he was like 25. Like he's just always looked the same. And so
Balding and ponytail.
yeah, and just like a great voice. And you know, I know we're gonna beat him up on this because he's obviously dead wrong on this, but like he would have been helpful now with the woke stuff.
Yes.
I think he would. He's definitely part of that old school comedy. Like, what do you mean we can't make fun of everyone? You know,
A little Bill Maher before Bill Maher.
yeah, a little Bill Maher before Bill Maher. Okay, I'm just gonna go through this litany here, and we break this down in detail in the book. But this is something that we put in the chapter, and people don't think about this. Okay, so the whole like, you don't care about the kids in Syria, or you know. I started messing around with the notion of who is worse off or more alone than the unborn child. And the answer is nobody. So the babies scheduled to be aborted, this is who will not help them. Think about this. Their own mothers, their own fathers, even if the dad doesn't want abortion, he has no legal right to stop it. Their government, which will actually pay for the abortion in most countries. The only doctor who will ever examine them, not on their side. The only nurses they will ever encounter, not on their side. Most, if not all, of the extended family members who don't even know they exist.
As you've said before, the statistic is usually a woman only tells one person.
Before she has an abortion. So Aunt Sally can't intervene. Local, state, and national politicians who only accept that they exist in the abstract. So if you're kidnapped by terrorists, and you're in Lebanon, the SEALs are going to come and kill everybody and take you. It's awesome. Like, we do that. No one left behind.
Well, we used to do.
We used to do that. We're going to be doing it again very soon, Steve. You're going to be just fine when those terrorists drag you out of your house. We're going to come get Steve, and he's going to be looking really great when he gets back. Okay. Sorry, I couldn't resist that one. My kids won't listen to the podcast. They're just like, are you our blood father? When do we get the adoption announcement? Okay. Also, the unborn's fellow citizens who don't know that they exist and can't see or hear them. So they are the most isolated, alone people. The other thing that we point out, which we get in depth, is the disadvantages of the unborn child. So you mentioned like the immigrants, you know, and of course I know Trump does they're sending their drug dealers and their criminals and their rapists, but like there's like good people trying to come here.
Oh yeah, it's hard to blame them.
Of course. They have advocates, they have lawyers, they have funding, they can walk right in. They are self-aware. So the unborn child can't rely on herself or himself.
Right.
The lack of self-awareness is a massive disadvantage. You know, it's why we don't go around to people in comas and just kill it. Like, they can't help themselves. They're totally dependent on us. And I think we forget, with all the rhetoric, how much the deck is stacked against the unborn child. And then to have somebody come up and say, you don't care about whatever, is just like, this is literally the most defenseless, alone person on earth. Most vulnerable. Like, there's not a better person to stand up for. There's not a greater victim.
And there's already, okay, you made the point. There's so much stacked against them, which is why in one of our more recent podcasts where we talked about language, we don't need to add to that dehumanizing them in our language. We have to make sure that we are humanizing, reminding people that these are human beings that exist today. They are part of our species, and we have to honor them and recognize them. And when we don't, all that's doing is feeding more into this. Why should we even care about them? And makes them even more alone because we're not valuing them. We're not recognizing them.
I want to say something to all of our wonderful leaders because I know what they're thinking, and this was intentional when we put this in the book. You go through this, and I want the leaders all get a free copy of the book. It's another good reason to lead a campaign. You go through this, and you go through the list of what the unborn child does not have going for him or her. The government, their own parents, their relatives, most people don't even know they exist. They have no voice. And then you're recruiting your volunteers, but they got you. They've got you. And that's the reason to sign up for 40 Days for Life and go out to the vigil. The whole deck is stacked against them, but they've got to see you outside, and we get to be that voice. And that's the counter argument, is that the unborn child has the pro-life movement. And my answer is, damn right they do. And we're not going anywhere, and that's why we go out, and that is the point, because the world's completely forgotten about them.
Whether those babies are saved or not, right? Like, there's nothing worse than when you go out to 40 Days for Life and witness the woman walk in pregnant and then hobble out physically, spiritually, emotionally broken afterward. Mm-hmm. And I think sometimes that's a temptation, maybe from the devil, where pro-lifers feel as though if that little boy or little girl was lost on their watch, that they failed in their 40 Days for Life attempt. But if you were there, even if that little boy or little girl was aborted, that little child was loved, and that simply would not have been the case except for you were there. It's an act of solidarity. Your simple act of presence, witness, and making the effort was the only act of love that little boy or little girl ever receives in his or her all too short a time on this earth.
You are dead on accurate. And in the great cosmos, there is merit in that. And God is real, and he does exist. And these babies are aborted at an unbelievable, rate. We can't really fathom it. There's 78 million a year. But he recognizes these small acts of love that we were there with the baby. And the baby will be aware of that in heaven, Mm-hmm. And just that, it just is such a get you out of bed in the morning, point that we can be there in solidarity. And we go down, and that's why we're picking on George Carlin, because he's like, oh, we don't care. And it's like, you're acting like you care about kids. We'll show you a victim. It's the unborn child. And you kind of humanize them. And yet we can look at all that, and it seems overwhelming, that we even save one baby considering this. And there's got to be who cares? Forget it. I'm going out. I'm giving the effort. I'm going against the odds. The deck is stacked against them, but I can go out and I can give my minuscule effort and trust it to God, and he delivers it. And I just think that there's wonderful, beautiful Christian merit in that, which is what John Paul II put in Evangelium Vitae, which is, am I my brother's keeper? Like, I saved a baby. I didn't save any babies, but I went out there. Like, I have a moral obligation to be my brother's keeper if I have the capacity to do it and all that good stuff. So yeah, I think it's a very powerful point. And this, in a lot of what we do on the podcast, and certainly in the What to Say When books, this just falls in the category of, we go on offense around here. Mm-hmm. Like, we're not passive. Okay, so if you're going to tell us we don't care about born children, we're going to, number one, laugh at you, because that's the appropriate reaction. And we'll probably get you to laugh too, because it's such a stupid comment, you don't believe it. But we're also going to dig in a little bit. Like, who is it we're talking about here when we say we care about the unborn, we don't care about the born? We need to dig into this a little. And we do it with rape, we do it with incest. We have to get into it, because we got to go on offense. And we in the pro-life movement have never had more material to use than we do now. I mean, you imagine if Governor Northam would have said what he said in like 1995? Clinton would have like had a press conference and been like, "This is not the position of the pro-choice movement." I mean, there would have been like this like whole like, can we lock him up somewhere? Like he's a lunatic.
Clinton loved when people said insane things because it gave him the opportunity to make himself the centrist.
He truly was a moderate. I can't even believe we're saying this. My grandfather's rolling over in his grave, but like he was now because they've gone in today's standards. They've gone so crazy, which is funny because I would say the conservatives are more conservative and the liberals have gone more left.
For better or for worse.
Yeah. I mean, you'd have never. When did y'all get school vouchers? That would have never happened in 1992.
I want to say like 2011 or somewhere along those lines.
And this is where the Tea Partiers come in and they kind of take credit for starting all this.
Nobody was talking about defunding Planned Parenthood until 2011. That's a new-ish concept.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't think most of us knew how much they were being funded.
Yeah.
But I think both parties were more moderate in the 90s.
Yeah.
You just didn't have a lot of like outlandish comments from politicians all the time. I mean, now it's wild. And there's like 100 a day on both sides.
Not a normal day without outlandish comments.
Well, and part of me has a hope. Because like I'm like a small government guy, and I don't think our founding fathers would have really liked knowing that the president is constantly being analyzed with everything he says and tweets, and that all these congressmen and senators are basically celebrities and pop stars now. And we're like, it's kind of like you're elected, you go do your job, and you leave us alone, and we never hear from you.
In a healthy country, we wouldn't really care that much who was president. Like we'd vote and we'd have our preference,
right?
But it wouldn't occupy entire livelihoods the way it does.
It also wouldn't dominate Christmas dinner.
Yeah.
I mean, it is out of control with the division and all that but the access and the news, I don't think. I mean, I could see our founding fathers being like, you should talk to the media once a month. Mm-hmm. Like we have daily press conferences. Do we need that?
I don't.
I mean, there's just certain things that happen and nobody questions. Is that in the Federalist Papers? I don't think it is. Like, why do we do this? Yeah. You know? And part of it is keeping a check on government, but like, that's not what this is.
No.
This is like them commenting on every single little thing. And do we care that whatever, the Houston Astros visited the White House? I mean, everything is this huge story. And is a player going to sit out because they disagree and all this stuff? And it's like, our feel-good stories don't even feel good. It's just terrible. So
we make fun of like the 10-hour Super Bowl pregame show or like the 2 weeks of back-to-back NFL draft coverage, but it actually looks reasonable in comparison with the political punditry.
It's pretty amazing. Like, should we not? And I've said this before, I think on the podcast, I think the Vatican will reevaluate that because you had John Paul who wanted to use the media and was good at it and basically helped end communism through that. You had Pope Benedict who didn't like the media but could do it. And then you had Pope Francis who likes the media and is awful at it. It's like the worst combo. And I just think even like the Vatican, because they're like worn out, they have to clarify everything Francis says or distance themselves from it. It starts to like, you have to reevaluate, like, do we have to participate in this?
It's kind of a call to humility too, right? Because these things just are, we'd all be better off if we kind of like took responsibility for our own lives, our families, our vocations, and to some extent our communities, and weren't trying to, everybody in California is trying to impose regulations on the people in Texas, and everybody in Washington, D.C. is trying to tell the Africans that they shouldn't be reproducing. There's just something I think worthwhile to be said about not needing to be seen, heard, and platformed about every last issue. We take care of what God has entrusted to us and not more.
And we're, of course, saying this on a platform and a podcast and a YouTube channel, but we evaluate that. And I do it with TV interviews. Like, would it be better for 40 Days for Life if I did more? Would it be better if I do less? And I've not done some because I didn't think it would be helpful or whatever. And I'm always analyzing that. We certainly, like social media, we're like, well, we got to participate in it because whatever. But The politician thing is, you didn't hear from your congressman, and I know communication has changed, but I don't know. It doesn't seem to be working either. It seems to be unhealthy.
Yeah. And even this podcast and this platform, like, what's the tagline that you say when you start it out every time? Dedicated to helping you end abortion where you live. It's not like dedicated to bring about global change. It's where you live. The local level is what we're always talking about.
We are going to switch it to the global change thing. Okay.
World domination.
I think we've
covered this.
But can we just go through some of the examples real quick? Okay.
Back to the moon?
There's no need to pit vulnerable people against each other. We love everyone. Okay, that's our phrase before we say something
All are
controversial.
welcome.
All right, here we go. These are from the book also. Can we kill people solely because we think others don't care enough about them? What to say when to is actually pretty funny in a lot of places. Okay, sorry, it's terrible. Can we justifiably kill people because other people don't care enough about people we care about? Everybody has their own answer. Would the Nazis have been justified in killing Jews because they felt the Jews didn't care enough about Muslims? That's my favorite. Oh, actually, this is a pretty good one. Mm-hmm. The word plantation is just, you've got everybody's attention. Were plantation owners justified in owning slaves because the working conditions in northern factories were so bad? I love it.
My son says your company stinks.
Coca. Were the Aztecs in the clear for human sacrifice because they believed the Spanish were greedy?
I'm afraid that a lot of people's answer would be yes these days.
When I wrote this, I actually didn't realize how funny it was. Like, I was having fun doing it, but I'm now like laughing. It's something about reading it months later. This is a fun one. Can we murder gun store owners because we believe they don't care about school shootings?
And again, some people would say yes.
Some people would say yes. The other thing is with the failed Trump assassination, we've talked about this before, but it's like, if he's Hitler and the little dude goes up on the roof, isn't he a hero? Mm-hmm. Don't we want to kill Hitler? Mm-hmm. I mean, if Trump's a true threat to democracy, and then they're like, oh, we don't really think he's Hitler. We don't really think he's a threat to democracy. Well, what is he? Well, he's a bad president. Well, why? It's crazy.
Oh, he survived. He's back to being Hitler.
Yeah, he returned to Hitler really quickly. All right, so yeah, if abortion supporters care about children after birth, they should care about them before too. So
have fun with this one, right?
Have fun with it. That's one of the fun chapters, because you've got to get into this kind of stuff. And again, we only do this with abortion. It's very unique to abortion, and it's the same with we root for the underdogs, except when it's has to do with abortion. Rate, review, share this podcast. We will see you next time. God bless you.